All right. Good morning. You're on the Get Busy Livin Podcast, and I'm Dr. Scott from Six Sense Acupuncture and the Healthy Habits Club. We have a special guest today, and that's Andy Roost, and he's the Brainiac. Thank you so much, Brainiac.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
For coming on this morning. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to hearing the nuggets of gold that you got.
Sure.
Thanks again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'll kick off the show with my usual question. So tell us, Andy, what gets you out of bed every morning?
What gets me out of bed? I mean, I enjoy what I do. So that's a big positive as well in terms of me getting out of bed in the morning and wanting to actually get stuck into things and meet new people, do new things. So that's a big plus. I suppose also added to that is, the opportunity of meeting very different people, interacting with different businesses, that sort of thing. So, that sort of drives me a lot. I spent nearly 30 years in the corporate environment and, you got that, but not to the same extent when you're dealing with small businesses or coaching small businesses and things like that. So that's a big driver for me. And then obviously, I think physically, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm 55. I'd like to think I'm reasonably physically fit, which is good as well. I used to still play cricket up until last year, veterans cricket, and I still look after myself. So that helps me in the morning get up because I feel comfortable in getting up. I suppose I've got no major aches or pains or anything like that, and that helps a lot as well. I think just getting the brain in a positive space to actually want to physically get up, stand up, and do something. So, I think those two are quite important to me.
That's pretty cool. So, I can see you're trying to help the community, and we'll get into your past in a minute. And
yep.
You're right. Each day is a blessing, and the present is a present. So treat it as such.
Correct.
So tell us about how did you get into the Brainiac business? How did you get into the business that you're in?
As I said, I've had nearly 30 years in corporate. So I worked for two global international healthcare medical device companies. I had the opportunity to get around the world a little bit. I was in South Africa, Germany, Switzerland, and then Australia, and also worked in Singapore as well. So I've had the opportunity to be around a bit, but, eventually I think there was a bit of a calling, and we had a personal aha moment in our lives where I think there was a bit of a check and balance done in terms of where we were at and what we were doing and what we wanted to do. And I think that just added fuel to a decision that said to me the time was right at roughly 55 or 54 to exit the corporate space and look at doing something on my own. I had the idea for a while and decided to act on it. So I started off doing my own consulting business, which I still have today. And about 6 months ago, I became aware of Brainiac and what the founder of Brainiac was doing and his focus and how he goes about what he does. And that sort of intrigued me in terms of the ability to work with small businesses and have an impact in a community as well, because all small businesses make up communities. So that was, for me, quite a positive sort of space. And, I thought, 30 years of corporate's got to be worth something. And so I try to connect those two dots by doing the consulting, the coaching, and targeting small to medium-sized businesses to help them get through some of the issues that they have on a daily basis and make them achieve some of their goals. So, that's sort of where I've been. So that's been my space for the last 18 months or so. It's been fun.
So 30 years, and you're in the medical device industry. So that's very interesting. So tell us about that. So was it like were you a sales rep, or were you in the processing plant? What section were you in?
So I suppose the glasses and the grey hair, if I had a pen behind my ear and a calculator maybe in my pocket, you might get the feeling that those roles that you described were not me. So I've done economics and finance as a background. So I was in the finance side, so moved through the roles, doing various roles within the big divisions. So managing divisions from a commercial perspective, so a financial perspective, budgeting, forecasting, deal structuring, things like that. Eventually went on to become CFO of Siemens in Switzerland for the healthcare division there. And then did the same here in Australia. So I've got a fairly strong financial background, but I've fortunately had the opportunity where I think working with numbers has its limits in terms of fun, to be honest. And I'd reached that point at one stage, and I decided to look for other opportunities, and managed to sort of get into a space where I took over a business unit, or I started a business unit, which was around the consulting and just connecting the dots type space. And that was about 15 years ago. And from there on, I have my financial hat in the rearview mirror, very much in the sense of not doing any roles that were specific to that, but obviously still being able to leverage my financial experience and acumen in terms of my newer roles. So I've done everything from business management, business unit management, key account management, also doing sort of an APAC role, a Pacific role, where I was supporting various countries in terms of their endeavors to set up consulting business within their countries and things like that. So yeah, I was fortunate that I sort of moved through the roles in terms of all of the sort of divisions that you could really think of. It was never really in manufacturing or anything like that, but definitely the front end sales type roles. I did most of the roles that you could have in an organization. Even led a sales team at one stage as well. So, I've got quite a broad portfolio of skills and experience. So that sort of also helped my thought process when I thought about going into the coaching or the consulting spaces, that I felt, I had some of the puzzle pieces all in my backpack to be able to look at how I could help businesses.
So, this is, I suppose, I hope this is not too intrusive, but why did you get out of the executive roles? Why did you get out of that?
Look, I mean, I think executive roles, they have their fun aspect to them, but they have a lot of pressure. And depending on the role and the project or the business that you're in, it takes its toll. So I've been in a role where I ran a project for 3 years, which was a very big project. It was a fairly new type of business. So it was very complex, working a lot with Europe in terms of making sure that we got things right, working with a challenging customer as well, on something that was relatively new and that we were really designing for them very specifically. So it was filled with challenges. And I also had the tyranny of distance, where I was based in Sydney, but I was flying up to Perth on a regular basis. So I just started realizing that, there's got to be more to that. And I had an aha moment where I caught the red eye back from Perth one night on a Friday night. For those that don't know, the red eye is either 11:30 or 1:30 in the morning, and then you arrive back in Sydney at 6:30 in the morning. I then went home, had a shower, and went to umpire one of my son's cricket game. And while I was umpiring, I actually fell asleep standing up. So I realized that, and I missed an appeal. I had a young 10-year-old appealing in front of me. Didn't know what he was appealing for because I'd been fast asleep. And I realized that at that moment there was something wrong with this picture. It just wasn't right. And then I started looking for other opportunities. So at that stage, I made a move to another corporate, just to try and give myself something different to do, and did all of that. But again, at some point, reached a point where I felt that as much as the job was good and giving me the rewards that I felt that I wanted out of the role, I just felt that there was something missing. And like I said to you, I had a bit of a personal event that was in that space as well, where it just made me reflect and think to myself, no, there's got to be more to that. There's got to be a space where I can have ownership and flexibility of what I do and how I do what I do, and that I can get more reward out of what I do with the customers that I do things with. So that's just how it all sort of came together, I suppose, and then led me to my event that started my businesses 18 months ago. And to be honest, even after 18 months, it's not a long time. I wouldn't trade it for the world. There's experiences. Yes, there's been interesting times, tough times, but by the same token, it's been so valuable and so rewarding. So I wouldn't give it up.
Yeah, I hear that a lot in the executive industry. They burn out or they go crazy.
It is a big
your story is unique, but it's the same principle. It's what I hear a lot.
It definitely is, and sometimes you try and control as much as you can control, but when you're dealing sometimes at things at that level, there's things that are out of your control, and as much as you try and put structures in place or you try and put things in place to manage situations or give you ways out or smooth things over, it's very tough. And eventually you can do it a couple of times, but eventually I suppose it starts wearing a bit thin and starts becoming a bit more difficult to manage. And then you've either got to take ownership of your own situation and reach the epiphany where you don't get to the stage like you maybe described where you have a breakdown or whatever. And I hadn't reached that point, but I had that moment where I just thought, no, there's got to be something better than this. And that was my sign that the time was right to move and do something different.
Yeah, and that's yeah. So I hear that a lot. I get it, brother. I get it. So you work for what was the German company?
So Siemens, and then a Dutch company.
Siemens, yeah, Siemens. So Siemens, they're more than just medical devices. They do a lot of other. They're massive, yeah. So so that tell us. So what sort of medical devices was it? Like blood pressure machines? Was it?
So both Philips and Siemens are huge. So they're across the board. A lot of their key focus is in radiology. So MRIs, CTs, X-ray machines, mammo machines, oncology machines, things like that. But then both companies also have niche portfolios in either pathology as well or patient monitoring, for example. Ultrasound's a big space for them as well. They don't do the sort of the blood. They do the blood pressure monitors and stuff as well, but it's most probably not as big as it could be. There are other players that are quite unique in that space, and that's their portfolio that they are fairly good at that. So I think both Siemens and Philips tend to sort of stay on the higher level in terms of the enterprise of a hospital and then figure out how they can play in that space. So they have IT solutions as well to connect all the machines together, to use the data that comes out of the machines in different ways, et cetera, to hopefully then improve patient outcomes over the long term as well. So a lot of that it's quite high end, big money, big contracts, long-term deals, service contracts. It's big business.
Yes, I did see that when I worked at the Royal Brisbane and Princess Alexandra. I did see a lot of Siemens imaging equipment there, and I know that Queensland Health were trying their hardest to, at the time, this is like 2010, 2012, they were trying to, it's called QEPS. So QEPS is like a Queensland Health, it's a database. And what it meant is that you put data in the patient's data into a database, and then that database can be sent to whoever's connected to QEPS. So all the admin staff had it. The doctors, obviously, nurses had access, and of course that also was the imaging equipment as well. Same deal. All that was put into this database.
Correct.
They're probably better at it now because they've had a decade or so to get at it, to use it. But at the time, it's pretty clumsy. It's pretty clumsy at the time, but they're probably.
It's moved on quite a bit from there. I mean, obviously now you have the central health record as well. So for patients, so where everything goes into nationally, and you can imagine a hospital is a very complex organism. It's got a lot of departments, a lot of information flows between departments from one department to another. Somebody's got to review something. Somebody's got to interpret something. It's then got to be put into the system. A lot of people touch a patient record, so it's a very complex beast, and it's not an easy problem to solve. To be honest, I think if we can get it right, and the patient can have everything on one record that really is accessible to any healthcare provider, irrespective of whether you're public or private, I think that would be huge, because the power of some of the past data in terms of helping something today is extremely powerful. And having that available and qualitatively available is very powerful. So I think, the utopia is definitely what everybody's striving for, is that we can have full access. It's very transparent. It's very private. It's very secure. It's usable. It's reliable, etc., etc. But there's a lot of work and effort that has to go in from various sources, various people, various things that need to align to get that to happen and to work. And most probably
I know. I saw it happen. I saw it firsthand. It was a Schmozzle at the start. It was losing records. It was all over the place. But I was going to say they were getting better at it. I did see that. And you're right. How do they fix it? I don't know. But the other thing is that they were going away from paper.
Correct.
Everything was on paper, and they had this in the basement of the hospital. They had this huge room. It was air-conned, and it was just rows and rows of files, and they had staff 24/7 around the clock, and that's all they do is deliver files.
Correct.
And,
so the beauty of the system today is hopefully all of that is done electronically now. So again, you have to secure all that data to make sure that it's qualitatively good, and that if it was on paper, it's now converted to some sort of electronic form, and that is usable and accessible. Yeah. So it's a huge project. Like I say, it's very much, I think, work in progress. No matter, I don't think anybody can honestly put hand on heart and say they've got it 100% right yet. So it's definitely work in progress, and I think everybody is trying to get to that utopia, but it's going to take a while, and everybody needs to toe the line as well. And the hospitals, the clinical staff, the patients need to toe the line. Everybody that's in the healthcare system needs to play their role. So it's tough.
Yeah, and I totally agree. So, so you got into the Brainiac business, and you got out of the corporate world. Sick of the an old boss of mine used to say, "Wiping bums."
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad, but it was just
wiping bums. You reckon?
It's very different. It's very different.
Yeah. It was, well, when you're in charge of so many people, it's very difficult to. We're human beings, and we all make mistakes, and some of us learn from them, some of us don't.
Correct.
So so that's the joys of being a boss. That's the joys of being in charge of others, and that and that's what you're trying to allude to earlier, is that you can't control everyone. You can't. There's no way.
No, you can't. And that's the difference now in the coaching space or in the consulting space that I now work in, is that at the end of the day, I'm dealing with the person that is going to do the change or not do the change, which is the business owner. And so they've either got to be motivated to get the job done and do what's required to move from point A to point B. And now I can also see that pretty quickly. So I can judge fairly quickly whether they're doing it, or they're involved, they're engaged, they're ready, they're doing what they need to do or not. And so where again in the corporate sphere, sometimes you toss something over the shoulder, and then you wait and see if something happens with it. If it comes back maybe a couple of days later, better than it was when you threw it over your shoulder, you hope. But now I think in this coaching space, it's very individual and it's very focused. And I think the driver there is, like I said, working with the business owners to help them move from one step forward in what they're trying to do and achieve. So that's good, because at least you see that change. You see things happening, which is really good, really positive.
Yeah, and to evolve and to test and measure is very important.
Exactly.
Test and measure. I found out on the Toyota vehicle manufacturing line.
Yep.
They've got many of them all around the world. So they've got, millions of employees all over the world. And they were saying that they got the CEO, the major one in Japan, and they asked him, how many changes do they make every year? And he said, well, we get about 900,000 requests, and they encourage their employees to put in input. And out of those 900,000 requests per year, they'll implement around about 85% of them.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what's the waiting time? How long does it take to implement the idea? And he said, we have a limit of 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so
it's
impressive. It's crazy, right?
But I mean, if you understand the logic, I think the logic makes sense. Why allow somebody to put in a request and say, hey, I think something can be improved, and then not do anything about it? So you've got an opportunity there where somebody who is a knowledge expert, who's live in the system or in the process or doing the job, and he or she is now offering a bit of input, why not execute it as quickly as possible? If it makes sense and if it meets certain criteria, go for it. So I think the Japanese mentality around what they do is very much around that, and they really do push that, and that's really good. I think it's very positive because the idea is to improve, not to go backwards.
Yeah, and that's what he was saying. And some things we keep. He said some things we keep, and then some things we don't, because that comes back to test and measuring, making sure that if it's speeding up the process, and
if it adds value, go for it.
And safe as well. It's safe and it's quick.
Correct.
Then, why not implement it? So that's what that's what you're trying to say is the same. That's what you're trying to get.
Yeah, and like I said, I've now, with the space that I've moved into, that decision-making process or that time that it takes now has been massively shrunk, because now I'm dealing with a business owner. We talk about a problem. We try and figure out how to do it, and then it's up to them to execute pretty quickly, and then we can see the results of that execution very quickly, and then we can do some tweaks, we can change something, we can improve something, or we can add something else. So it's very powerful when you see that work fit, in real life, and there's a quick turnaround to it, because then you're doing something right, or at least if something's not working, what you need to do to change it.
Yeah, that's right. And so tell us about what problems that business owners come to you with.
Look, I mean, the normal problems is, a lot of small business owners are very much in their business. They work day in, day out. They do what they do in terms of what their business is. They're very hands-on. And often their situation is they just don't come up a level in terms of just, take a bit of a breather and come up a level or two above their business and look down and see what needs to be done left and right of what they do every day. And that's often the biggest challenge is just being pulled out of that, and then having the time and then looking at it and then figuring out what to do next, and sort of laying down a bit of a strategy or a path to make some changes in the future. And then just having somebody to talk to sometimes is often also very key, is just hearing somebody else's perspective to a problem. And so a lot of our role is a bit of advice and guidance, but also a lot of it is like a typical sports team coach. It's sort of coming up with a strategy, coming up with a play, making sure everybody understands the play, and helping them execute that play. But again, I can only explain how they need to execute it. The execution in terms of what needs to happen, that needs to come from the business owner. So again, that's up to them to do and for them to drive. But I'm very much in the background with them to try and assist them if there's any issues, or if there's something weird happens, or they don't understand something, or they need to tweak something. And that's very much my role. So I think the big one is that helicopter perspective of not working in the business but above the business. That's a big issue. And then another area that I see often is just a little bit of forward planning in terms of what they want to do from a strategy point of view. And then also linking that strategy, their business strategy, to also their personal outcomes or their personal goals that they have. Because often if you don't align the personal and the business together a bit, you will have conflicts which could impact both sides. And depending on the conflict that happens, could impact either more personal or more business or both or whatever. So again, some of what we try to do is also help people understand both sides of that and make sure that they're working towards both of those, and they are combining those two a little bit to make sure that the long-term outcomes that they're aiming to achieve are actually being achieved or can be achieved. So I think those are the two key ones. And then, sometimes it's just also a little bit of expertise. I deal with a lot of businesses. I do a lot with a lot of other businesses that work with small businesses. So I do have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of contacts. So sometimes that's also sort of a third one, is a little bit around just being able to connect the dots for somebody, because they don't deal with that all the time. And they're not quite sure what is the next step, or who is the next person I should speak to, who's the right person I should speak to. And, because I've seen quite a lot, I can sometimes connect the dots a little bit as well for them, which is very powerful as well. It saves them, doing the good old Google search for something and then, either getting it right or not getting it right, or putting in the wrong search term, or just not being able to have the time to do it, to be honest. So those are, I would say, the three key things that generally small to medium-sized businesses come to us with.
Yes, Dr. Google. Gotta love Dr. Google. I was going to
You'll
say,
see that in the health industry as well. Dr. Google. Ooh.
Oh God! I was going to say, okay. So tell us about what sort of businesses do you mainly deal with? Is there a certain type of business that you deal with?
No, we deal very much across the board. So, like I said, small to medium-sized businesses, roughly $2 million turnover a year is about the maximum where we tend to go. We do some bigger ones as well, but generally we've evolved with those businesses. So we're just working with them on their next stage of maturity. But it generally can be anything. So we have a very broad portfolio. Obviously, I have a fair amount of healthcare experience, so I do tend to look at healthcare businesses as well, but I'm not restricted to just healthcare. So I'll give you an idea. I've got a bricklaying business that I'm working with at the moment, a cleaning business that I'm working with, a US subsidiary here in Australia that I'm working with their managing director. What else? An architect, 2 or 3 health businesses. So again, it's quite a mixed bag in terms of who and the type of people that I deal with. But like I said, it's the principles of business apply across the board, and sometimes it's just sort of weeding those principles out and understanding them, and then sharing those with the business owners.
So tell us about a success story then. Tell us about a business that you've started at the base, or your best one. Just tell us your best one. What's your best business story?
I think I have a very good example with a young guy that came to me, started a car detailing business, and basically he himself as a young man was, I would say, far more mature in terms of his approach to what he was trying to do and how he was trying to do it. And that made my job as a coach easier, because obviously he was motivated to take the steps, to do the work, to get the job done, and then to move things forward. He's very goal driven as well, and he's been an absolute pleasure to work with, and to see him from when I first started with him, right from the very introduction period when we were first getting to know each other, to where he is now. It's a super story in terms of how he's gone about it, what he's achieved in the time that we've been together, and just seeing that as the basis, and now looking forward to where he wants to take things. This kid's going to be a success story for sure, because he's just motivated. He's done the right things. He just loves what he's doing, and he's so super passionate. And for myself as a coach, that's the type of person that you want, that's driven, motivated, and keen to sort of get things sorted.
Has he got employees now, or
He will have. So his strategy is really to sort of, it was a bit of a one-man show, but that was part of his goal, was to take that one-man show and figure out what next. How do I grow things? What do I need to do? And that's the process that he's in now. So he's getting that right to be able to then expand it and to rapidly sort of address the growth of his business. But he had to make sure that the basis was all right. And because it's one thing to own a business and run a single business, but when you want to expand and you want to replicate that business, it requires quite a different set of skills, different set of processes, different set of business dynamics, and getting that all in place to make sure that you can take that leap and allow somebody else to have a business like yours but be successful is quite a different concept to what he would have started out as when he was just running it as a single business owner. So yeah, that's what he's doing, and he's getting those foundations right. And the sky's the limit. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So tell us about another business that you've helped.
Look, like I said, I've had a lot of businesses where you get involved with them, and the fact that they've actually put their hand up is the awesome big step, because so many of us get so engrossed in what we do day in, day out, that we sometimes just don't take a view left or right. And I've had customers that have come to me that have just had a brief assessment and they've moved on. They haven't done any consulting or coaching with us, but just the assessment in terms of what we did for them, just to give them a little bit of a sort of a status points where their business was, and give them a few sort of clear ideas of where to take their business. That was enough for them. And just the fact that they've done that is a huge step for a lot of them. Because as I say, it's just putting your hand up and saying, hey, I need help, or I need somebody to just give me a bit of advice and guidance. So even from a success point of view, for me, that's a success as well, even though it hasn't really led to an ongoing coaching scenario relationship with me. I know at least that the customer has taken something away from it. They've understood what I've done, and they like what I've done for them, and they've now running with it. So again, that's just a tick for me as well. I've had a few pro bono ones where we just do sort of free things, and that's mainly just in somebody that's really trying to get their business off the ground. Or I've done a bit of work with QUT, where they've got some entrepreneurial programs as well, and you work with some of the students there on some of their ideas. And that's also good fun, because again, you get a group of students who are studying very different things, and you now put them in the room and say, hey, figure out a business and let's see what happens. And it's amazing what these guys come up with sometimes. And just watching those grow as well is pretty awesome. You're on mute, Scott.
Sorry. Well, I'll just go on to the next question. So, what sort of businesses are you looking at trying to help? What's your ideal client?
Again, across the board, sort of mom and pop type small businesses, businesses that have reached a point where they realize they've got to do something different to grow or to expand. Maybe they're taking a decision to either get their business ready to sell. And, obviously, it's like a home. If you've got a house and you want to put it on the market, you spend a little bit of time, you paint a few things, you get a few things sorted out. And that's not different in a business as well. You need to make sure that the business is in the best state that it can be, so that you are then providing something to the market that sellers would, or that buyers would be very interested to spend money on, and that they can then see themselves running fairly easily. Because obviously the more a business is in a mess, to be honest, the less chance you have of finding that ideal buyer and getting the top dollar for your business. So that's one angle as well, is getting your business ready for sale. The other part is getting your business ready to expand your business or to replicate your business. And like I said, you can be a one-man band initially, but now trying to get a business in a position to be able to get other people to do the same business and make sure that they are successful at doing that. that's quite a different mindset. It's quite a different business structure, and you need to do quite a few different things. So those are the two sort of key areas that we help a lot of businesses with. And then obviously it's just the standard, hey, I need help. I don't quite know what to do. Can you assist in trying to give me some ideas around where I need to take my business? So I think that's a let's say third angle. And then we do deal with quite a few startups. So where somebody has a business idea in their head and they're just trying to put together the pieces to sort of say, right, I want to formulate my plan. I want to make sure that it works. I want to sound check it as well to make sure that it sounds viable and that I've dotted the I's, crossed the T's, etc. So we do quite a bit of work in that space as well. So it's quite broad.
I know.
Yeah. But that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes what appeals to me the most, is that dealing with totally different personalities, totally different business types, and just helping them get from point A to point B. It's awesome.
Yeah. So and it's your business is very similar to mine in the mindset space. So tell us about that. Can you give us like snippets of strategy that you would use for mindset?
Look, I mean, we have a bit of a process that we follow where, if an inquiry comes in, we have what we call an introductory chat with somebody. And the idea of that introductory chat is really for us to be able to have an understanding of what the individual is looking for, what they're hoping to achieve with this, what they understand coaching to be or not to be. And then obviously we tell them what we do and how we can help. And out of that introductory discussion is for us to paint a picture of, will this work? Because coaching is very much a connection between two people. And if that connection is not working or won't work, then there's no point in both parties entering some sort of relationship, because it's just not going to work. Because again, we need to both be principally on the same page. We need to be able to communicate with each other, and we need to have the understanding that if I'm going to help, then I'm going to give you advice and guidance. And then the understanding is that you work on that advice and guidance to execute it, because that's the only way this relationship will work. So again, a lot of our process is around getting to the point where we're on the same page. We understand what we both bring to the party and what we both expect out of the party, let's say. And then we have to make a call. Does it work? Is it going to work? What is then the perfect arrangement that works for that relationship going forward? And then we decide on that. And, we have another component to our thing, that we don't try and commit anybody to a relationship with us. So we don't get them to sign a contract or anything like that. We work on a month-by-month basis, because again, our feeling is that you'll want us around, you'll want to work with us if you're feeling comfortable with what we're doing, if you're getting value out of what we're doing, then the relationship will continue naturally. And that's what we want, because again, that ensures that both parties are vested in the deal, in the arrangement, and that we're trying to get out what we can for both parties to be mutually beneficial. So that's extremely important. So like I said, if you ask me how do I go through this, it really is to understand what drives the individuals in this, and make sure that the drivers can be met, and that both parties can work towards those drivers in terms of how that relationship would work. If it doesn't, then move on. There's no point in trying to drag something, through the grass that doesn't want to go through the grass. If that's the right analogy, I think. I don't know.
Whip the dead donkey, I think, is another one.
Or the take the horse to water. That doesn't necessarily mean the horse wants to drink. So that's the thing. We want to make sure the horse wants to drink, and we take it to the right water hole to drink the right water, and that it drinks the right water.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. No whipping dead donkeys.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. It's the same for me. I can't always help everyone. Just the people that you work with, they need to want to be helped.
Oh, exactly. It's very powerful. And the same for you particularly, is people come to you hopefully with an ailment that they want to have addressed. Now, there's a certain commitment that you will do to them to assist them, but there's also things that they need to do to be equally as proactive in their rehabilitation or getting better. But if they don't do that, well, you can only do so much. And the same is for my side is with a business owner. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's they call it a placebo in science. It's so if that's why the GPs, they get a placebo every time you walk into their practice, because you're going there to get better.
Yeah. Well, that's the intent.
Yeah, that's right. You're going in there to get better. So it's the same with the business. If someone comes forward, there's a pretty good chance that they want to get help. There's a really high chance that they want to get help. So
correct.
It makes your job a lot easier. It's just whether you have the product for them, the product that fits for their product that fits for their business,
lifestyle, their willingness to do, etc., etc. Yeah, you're right.
All right. So have you? I was looking at your website. So that you're in Northgate, I see.
Yep.
In north of Brisbane.
Yep.
How long have you been there for? How long have you been Northgate for?
So Northgate, not as long. It's probably about 8 months or so. We used to be in Wavell Heights, so that's the neighbouring suburb. So we were there for 7-8 years. So yeah, we've stayed within the same area. Our kids go to a local school, or my youngest goes to a local school. Not long to go, and then he's finished. So he's in year 12 now. So who knows where we'll be long term? Again, once the kids have reached that out of school age, who knows what happens after that?
I grew up in Northgate, and then also I lived in Wavell Heights for many years too. I used to own a house in Wavell Heights, so I know that area like the back of my hand.
It's a good spot.
Yeah. Well, you're right on the railway tracks there, so you're 10 minutes from the city. That's what I used to like about it.
Correct.
You catch a train straight into the city. It's changed so much from when I was a kid. It has.
And the good part is you've got Northgate, you've got Virginia that have got business areas, small businesses. You've got Chermside that's developed a lot in small businesses as well. So, there's a lot of close by areas that are quite nice for this in terms of businesses. And then obviously a lot of the Wavell Heights people work in the city as well, or might have businesses in the city. So the connection is quite good in general from both a living point of view and also the work point of view, but then also schools. There's a couple of good schools in the area. So that's just helped our decision when we first moved up here from Sydney was, that it fitted perfectly.
Yeah, well, you're right. Virginia has always been an industrial estate. Always. Yeah. Like even when I was a kid, it was always an industrial estate. There was always businesses everywhere through there. Yeah. I dare say it would continue that way. Northgate wasn't so much. Nunda was more of an industrial area, but Northgate more. And as you can see, they're building a lot of townhouses now through there.
Yeah.
So it's all changing. But what I was going to say, yeah, you're right. There was always, especially up towards Toombul, because now they've stopped. They're knocking down Toombul Shopping Centre after the floods. So it's changed a hell of a lot. And of course, Wavell Heights, well, I don't think that'll ever change.
Again, properties are being subdivided a little bit. So there's a little bit more, the sort of townhouses, the sort of smaller sort of row houses coming in. But, again, that's making the suburb more accessible to a lot more people, to be honest, which is not a bad thing, which is good for the schools, good for the community. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as long as it keeps developing and growing and in the right way, I think that's good.
All right, mate. I think I'll move on to we've done pretty well. It's almost 45 minutes. So we're pushing time, but I'll move on to the last question. So give us some ideas or information about lifelong longevity.
Sure. Wouldn't we all like to own that space or understand that space? Look, my sentiment is ownership, I think, is if longevity in itself is something that we can all aspire to, but it's something you've got to work towards. It's something that you've got to work with to get to it. So I think we've got to all take ownership of our own health, our own things, our own circumstances that we surround ourselves with. And I'd like to think that some of the things that I've made the decisions that I've made in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years have been partially to do that. So, I had my aha moment from a corporate perspective where I felt, no, there's got to be something different that needs to change. And I did that. And then I've positively changed into my own business. Yes, sure, that could bring around a lot of other stresses and everything as well associated to it. But I think I've always tried to maintain the positivity of what that experience will be for me and what it will do for me. I've really made a conscious effort to be around for my kids as well. And that's quite important, both from a mental and I think a spiritual point of view as well. But also be an example for my kids because, in a way, as the main breadwinner or in a couple or whatever, you're a little bit the insurance policy of that family, and if you're just going to, I think if you're going to leave everything to fate or to hope, like in my background there, hope is not a strategy. If you're going to leave it there as you're hoping something's going to happen, then the chances of it happening are fairly slim. So the best logic that I would give if you want to try and own your longevity is to take control of what you can control and do things that you can control, the sort of the rhetoric or control the narrative, insofar as that you keep yourself healthy, you keep yourself fit, you try and get as much sleep as you can, you listen to your body, and you seek out advice and guidance in terms of when things don't feel right. Because again, if something's not feeling right, it's your body trying to say, hey, hello, I've got a bit of a challenge here. I'm not happy here. We need to sort something out, and then you need to figure that out and then address it. Because, like I said, we had an aha moment with one of our kids, and it suddenly came on us. This was a kid that was super fit, and suddenly, had a situation which didn't prepare. We weren't prepared of. Now, could we have done something about it? It was probably not, to be honest, but. How he then handled it, how we handled it with him post what was the diagnosis and everything, that is extremely powerful. And if I look at him now, what he's doing, how he's owning his space, how he's owning his personal sort of evolvement or health after the event, that's how you've got to handle it. The more you put yourself into your own ownership of what you want, I think the more you can control what happens in the future. There's no guarantee, but at least you feel like you're in control, and that's the main thing, I think. You're on mute again, Scott.
Mute again. I'm on mute again. Sorry. It's okay to make mistakes.
No.
So I was going to say, I agree with you, Dad. The system is set up so that we rely on the system, and the more that we rely on ourselves and the more we rely on the information that we have, the better for us, for each other. Yeah. And I can sort of, I'm trying to read between the lines, so that's what you're basically saying to me. So
yeah, and I use the same narrative for small businesses as well. I try and give them if we're trying to do something or we're trying to achieve a goal, I also try and get them to do a bit of scenario thinking as well. So what if? So if the goal is X, but what happens if Y happens? What happens if Z happens? Then at least allow yourself to have 2 or 3 pictures of where you could be and what you need to do to either change them or get them back on track. And I think the same is with our personal circumstance, our personal health, our personal well-being, is if we don't sort of own those, and we don't create those scenarios or understand those scenarios, then we'll never really know what to do or how to approach them. So I think the best you prepare yourself, the better it can be for yourself.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Andy. You've given us some gold nuggets today, much appreciated. And I've got 3 platforms I'm streaming this live on, so Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you could put your details in those in the chats, that'd be appreciated, so people can get in touch with you if they can ask you any questions that they want about any information they can get from you. So thank you so much, brother.
Thank you very much, Scotty. Thanks for the opportunity, and keep healthy, everybody. Own your own health and get on with it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too.